evening, good day, and good morning. I'm Jonathan Bey, and this is MOOR TALK, episode 11. What we're going to be talking about today is Kabbalah. Some pronounce it as Kabbalah. And what we're going to talk about is authentic Kabbalah. We're going to give you a perspective, not of scholars, but of practitioners. And in this series, you'll not only get an overview of authentic Kabbalah, but also the keys, the basic concepts, the ways of approaching this wisdom so that it can open to you. All right? Because it is a way of study, a way of thinking, a way of feeling, very different from our normal sense of things. And it requires, as any skill does, a mastery of the basics, the primal basics. So in our series of more than 20 or so sessions, we're going to cover all of those that are most important for you to know. All right, we're going to start with an overview, a general overview, because there's a great deal of confusion about it. There's a lot of data, a lot of information out there about Kabbalah. I think maybe 1,000 books a year are published on the subject. And almost none of them have anything to do about Kabbalah. It's just kind of a mishmash of some people's imaginations of what it should be, what it can be, their intuitions, their imaginations. But it's not their fault. There's a great longing to know what Kabbalah actually is, because it's a sensation that it's actually important and that it's powerful and that it has a grasp of something that's hidden in this world. It's called a hidden science for 3 reasons. 1, it has been purposely hidden by the practitioners of Kabbalah themselves, by the Kabbalists. Kabbalah started 4,000 years ago, around 1947, 8, before the Common Era. All right, and for that period of time, 2,000 years, until the beginning of the Common Era, the destruction of the Second Temple, it wasn't hidden. Okay, it was widely taught. You can think of the stories of Abraham sitting in the door of his tent, welcoming in travelers, showing his hospitality. What he's actually doing, he was feeding them, and he was teaching them about the wisdoms of Kabbalah. And the type of souls that lived at that time in this world were a little bit more defined than the souls that live right now, and they understood more, everything more naturally. But something occurred at the beginning of the Common Era, the destruction of the temple, that made it impossible for people at that generation in the 2,000 years that followed to understand really anything about Kabbalah. And one of the situations that occurred was the encroachment of the forces that came behind Alexandria out of the Ptolemaic regime. Ptolemy was the 5th general of Alexander the Greek. And he is the individual who interjected himself into the ancient mystery systems of the great endemic empire, Egypt, as we would call it today. And after a great deal of bloodshed, he was allowed into the priesthood. Now, this is why you had a large global disbursement of the information and knowledge which has come to be known as the religions of the earth. Those that had fled so as not to be killed because they did not want to allow Ptolemy into the system. This is where you're going to find the beginning of the European pharaohs in Egypt, was at the onset of Ptolemy's reign. So that's why you would call it the Ptolemaic era. Okay, and that's where we get the term Pope, is from Ptolemy. And there's that'll be a whole another podcast when I trace from Ptolemy all the way through and explain how the popes came into being and the rise of that particular creed and credo. But for right now, we're going to talk about the speculations of what Kabbalah explains, okay, opposed to what people have been imagining that it is explaining. All right. So Kabbalah was hidden because the information was not available to the common person, and also there was information within it that the average person was not to be exposed to, because there is a great deal of power within Kabbalah. Now, the reason that this is being exposed now, at this particular era in time, is because this is a time for it to re-arise. Okay, we are entering into this new era, this new Moorish Renaissance, this time of this Aquarian age of enlightenment. And there is a shifting of things which will allow for the uplifting of fallen humanity to occur. All right? So I'm going to explain to you the inner workings of Kabbalah and the ancient mystery of understanding what it is, opposed to speculatively what people imagined that it is. All right? All right. Now, it's written in a very special language, unbeknownst to the average person. Okay, it's written in what they call the language of branches. Okay, it uses regular words like books, family, travel, all the hand, all the words that you would see in the Kabbalistic books, like the Book of Moses, the Book of the Quran, the Torah. But it only speaks. All these words are terms that stand for other terms, but don't deal with anything within this physical objective reality, within this subjective realm. It has to do with the within this objective realm. It has to do with the subjective realm, the greater consciousness. Okay. Now, the world we live in is not a world of causes. It's a world of outcomes. There's nothing in this world that we can do that actually has any effect whatsoever, that can have any effect on the upper or outer greater reality, out of which things that we see in this world take their roots. Okay, so anything that we do physically to solve our problems in this world have very little effect to do on the outcome. Only a connection to the roots, to the causal level of things, can have any effect on this world. And this is what Kabbalah deals with the reality of that metaphysical truth. Okay? All right, my back was poorly positioned, so I needed to take a moment to readjust my chair. All right, so we'll continue. The Kabbalists are not speaking of things in this world. They're talking about the abstract forces within the subjective realm that actually create things which occur in this world. And only a wise student can understand what's really going on, okay? And it's dealing within a particular manner in which there is a key of understanding. Unless someone understands the manner in which it is formulated, as well as the manner in which it is being presented, and what the codification of these meanings actually are relating to the student, then it will remain hidden. All right? So you have the root level, and you have the branch levels. Okay. And also there's what's called the fire languages. And basically that's the Hebraic or Hebraic. The systems, which if you look at the lettering, much of it looks like fire. But that comes also from the hand and from the palm, and is a language that flows and speaks based upon the symbolisms and movement of the hand. All right. And it is in such a way that it is like fire. It's very fluid. All right. Okay, so let's go forward. All right, so we know that things that only a connection to the roots, to the causal level of things, can have any effect whatsoever on this real world. And that's what Kabbalah deals with. Our reality as a whole is structured in such a way that there's a world that exists above, so to speak, and a world that exists below. Okay? And the language of branches speaks towards what exists in the world below. Let's say the family, you'll read about it in the Torah. You know, it appears to be a story of the Jewish people, of family. Okay, a family will move to a location called the land, but the Kabbalist is not really speaking about this at all. They're talking about the abstract forces above that actually create these things and make them occur. Okay? And only a wise student can understand what's really going on here. This is the branch level, right? And this is the root level. So, unless a person learns how to read this language called the language of branches, you'll continue to see things as you now see things in this world. All right? All right, so now we're looking towards the hiddenness and the aspect of not understanding these hidden methodologies. People have still thirsted, have still needed, but they've had to fantasize, they've had to concoct things, they had to go according to what they could understand without correct teaching or inner properties that would allow for them to understand. Okay? Now we'll deal with these in a little bit more detail when we go into some of the more basic concepts, but a couple of the major ones are that Kabbalah is Hebraic mysticism. It's not mysticism, it's not a religion. It predates religion. Religion is a disconnect of Kabbalah, okay, and a misunderstanding of Kabbalah. Okay, because Kabbalists created halakha, okay, and the books, and those things which they consider to be the holy books, such as biblio-helio texts, which derived from that. So these are things that comes from that. However, it did not carry with it an understanding of the words. You'll have to interpret the words. So the relationship with Judaism is like Kabbalah amnesia. Okay, it's not a mysticism. It's a way of making a connection, a direct connect with those things that most would consider as magical or unfathomable, but it's only because you don't understand what it means. It's just like if you were to take a lighter out to a place where there were people that never, saw a lighter before. Yeah, it would be like a miracle, producing fire out of your hand. Something that they had no baseline understanding of relative to the technology and how it came into being. Okay, that it's magic, that it's something, the utilization of hidden upper forces to bring about situations that could not occur within this realm. But it's not, it's just, as we know, it's just technology. Okay. So understanding what is there within Kabbalah is an aspect of inner transformation. And most of what people teach it to be is just something coming out of their vivid imaginations. Okay. Some people say there's conditions like you have to be Jewish or Hebraic. That's not true. Some of the greatest Kabbalists, of modern history, so to speak, modern history, Angelos, Kiva, and the list goes on, and all Kabbalists took worthy students, but not based upon some physical attribute or some type of tribal connection or ihu. We can explain that later. But that you had to have mastered a preliminary wisdom before you can study Kabbalah. Well, if you don't understand what's written in Torah or Gemara, then you're not going to understand Kabbalah either. So it's not that you need these preliminary wisdoms, that if you cannot find spirituality within these preliminary wisdoms, then you must move to books who speak directly to spirituality, such as things in which the Torah is written, and amulets and protections and symbols and number and manipulation to create things to protect people from evil. Well, this is complete and total opposite of what Kabbalah deals with. Matter of fact, this is forbidden. It's considered idolatry, okay, to use it for some personal selfish reason. Plus, there's nothing to be protected from anyway. The amulets, the red strings, these are all psychological things that have absolutely nothing to do with Kabbalah. And then there's that mixture with the Eastern religions. Since we don't know anything, we intermix it with aspects of Hinduism or other Eastern misunderstandings, which just come out of earlier misunderstanding. And that's just because the books of Kabbalah or Kabbalah were not open. Okay. Now, as I said earlier, there's been a change. Okay. So, with the changing of time and the positioning of our planet architecturally within the space scheme of our time reality, space-time continuum, our planet is traveling through space and was destined to come to a particular place within the architecture of the greater system, almost like the hands of a clock. Okay, and that's where we are now. Okay, so these are the days in which the superstitions are to fall aside, and the sciences which actually Moorish Science, metaphysics as well as physics, and an understanding of the spiritual aspects of science in connection with things such as Kabbalah. So as since 1995, I guess it was, all of the books have been open. Okay. The only thing that is required is that you are seeking. Seek and ye shall find, with an earnest heart. And that you have a desire and you have a need for it. That's the only prerequisite, is that you have a desire and a need for the answers that can be found within Kabbalah. Okay? And all of the great Kabbalists have said so. And they've always said the only thing that is required is a desire. And whenever asked, the masters would always say, when someone would say, who can study Kabbalah they would say anyone who desires to. Then you have these people that say if you study Kabbalah, you'll go crazy. Well, it may appear as if you go crazy because there is a change that goes on with the understanding and connection of the wisdoms that are within reality. The pleasure, the source of the pleasure, is very different from the normal way of thinking. It's opposite. It's the kind of thought that exists within the spiritual world. So to someone who has an opposite goal to spirituality, someone may appear insane, all right? But not really. All right? So the third reason it's called hidden science is because it deals with what's hidden from our five senses. It answers a question that cannot be answered any other way, all right? It answers basically what is the meaning of life. That's just primary. Now this is a deep and severe question for someone who has this question that cannot find the answer to it in what their traditions tell them and what their science tells them or their teachers have told them, or art or history or psychology has told them, and they still yearning for an answer to that question, what is the meaning of life? They're wanting to know that which goes beyond the five senses. Reality is divided into what we would call worlds, okay? All right, so we're dealing with things that are hidden from our five senses, okay? It's answering that question of what is the meaning of life, okay? And it's hidden because that which is hidden from our five senses sits outside of that box that we spoke briefly of in episode 10, okay? It answers basically what is the meaning behind life or purpose of your being, okay? All right. So what we're going to do today is to begin breaking down how the thought process of Kabbalah must take place. There's a hierarchy of understanding, not simply in degree, but in its structure, okay? The books of Kabbalah tell us that we live in the whole of reality. There's a totality, and that's where we actually exist. Except for we have no sense of that. We have a complete, restricted sense of what we are and where we are. So much so that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the next moment in our lives. We don't know why they happen, where we came from, where we are, where we're going, as stated. Okay? There exists a complete reality that is greater than the perceived objective reality, and it's divided and reduced into a system called worlds, okay? By means of five worlds, okay? This first world is called the world of Adam Kadmon, and the next world is Absolute. The next is Bariya, okay? Then the world of Yetzirah and Asiya, okay? You can think of these as levels of consciousness, closeness or distance as it descends from this complete reality, from connection and reality and your understanding of it, until finally you reach a true mahsum, true disconnecting point, or the barrier. Okay. Now, these are spiritual worlds, and below this barrier is our world. Okay. Here, we have absolutely no sensation of the spiritual world, of the place in where we actually live and come from. Now, if you remember in episode 10, we talked about Einstein and how he couldn't get outside of the box. Until near the end of his determination of his career, his retirement, when he made that statement, when they asked him about what is reality, and he said it is an illusion, but a persistent one. That's when he came into an understanding that the reality that we perceive here is not the greater reality, but this is a causal consciousness interpretation of sensations that are allowing for us to go through the process of growth and spiritual evolution. Okay. All right. So here we have limited sensations called corporal or physical. All right. This complete light and the whole of reality by which we knew this and was connected to it, we would be able to direct our destiny. We'd stop making mistakes. We would understand the forces that guide us. We would become connected to such a degree that we would be able to live life in its fullest and for the benefit of all life. And yet, just as Kabbalah itself has been hidden from us, so has this force, this complete reality, been purposefully hidden from us, reduced to, through these levels, by a system of 125 steps, okay, into this world. All right? What Kabbalah is meant for is to allow for a person to trace their steps from descent into this world back through 125 steps, all the way to our root in the spiritual world, our source, our connection with the total of reality, the all which is, all law, all of the forces that we call the Creator, the benevolent force that has created for us a map of creation. This world is not the destiny. We right now are still within the womb state. This is still pre-primal for all intent and purpose. We are still, can think of ourselves as embryonic, fetus-like in nature, relative to our conscious understandings of reality. That's how far we are from our true birth of understanding that from which we came. So we descended from our roots in the spiritual world to where we are right now in order to fulfill the plan of creation itself, to return to this total of reality. All of the books of Kabbalah, the Torah, the Mishnah, the Gemara, speak only of the states that are found in these levels, both of the reduction as our soul fell from this complete connection, complete oneness, and the states in which we find in the descent and our way back up. All right, we descended to fulfill this plan, to rejoin this total reality, the all of the cause and effect, all laws, Allah. Okay? So all these books of Kabbalah only speak about the states which are found at these levels. All right? And the states that we find on the ascent back up. All right? And the method of Kabbalah is the means by which a person can begin to sense the inner world. Now, in order to do that, one must be taught what they are made of, what it is that prevents them from entering into this world, and how they can gain a sense of their spirituality again. And this takes a very special material, very directly created for the purpose of allowing a person the means by which to enter this world, this spiritual world. So the language of branches is, it's understood that we have some difficulties in understanding it, because there is a disconnect. But the great gift of Kabbalah is that in our generation, since 1995, when the wisdom was reopened to the world and those who really desire it, special books have been created. All right, and these books that have been passed from our ancient forebearers and now are required to be given back, okay, are now there for us to partake of. They're written in a language, a special language, which allows a person to get a foothold into the first rung of the ladder. And it's these lessons that we're going to take our sources, take a look at the quality of what it is that keeps us out of the spiritual world and what it is that will allow us in, and the method revealed through Kabbalah. Okay. The wisdom of Kabbalah teaches a practical method of attaining the upper world and the source of our existence by realizing our true purpose in life, perfection, tranquility, unbounded ascension, transcending time and space while still living in this world. All right, so now we're going to begin this exciting journey.
physical substance, no object, liquid, gas, nor solid. There was only a singular, non-material existence, a pure and completely stable, unified, undifferentiated existence, possessing the ultimate of possibilities. And among these possibilities was time itself. The beginning was the simplest of understandings. The primordial consciousness, the knowledge, I am. And with the occurrence of that first event, time began. And that first event was immediately followed by another, the occurrence of the first desire. I will. Instantaneously, by way of the will, came an unfathomably complex, non-physical, multi-dimensional expanse in which all non-material, non-objective principalities, the forces governing order, cause, and effect, would come forth, exist, and reside. And by way of these balanced forces, the enabling extensions of the singular, unified, undifferentiated existence, the will allowed for the presence of a space beyond probability in which material things of the most primordial physical objective nature could and would come into being and exist, the alpha colagrium, within the singular stream of consciousness. With unity persisting, here all events in the physical and objective realm of the omni-singular existence would occur. The perception of the here and now, the realm of present, is where the individual nature, for all intent and purpose, resides. For many, if not most, this, the universal aspect of us, our unified oneness, that which all things and beings are intrinsically linked, operates beyond the perceptions of our physical conscious precepts. And it is this one fact which stands as our only true divine point, our inability to recognize our oneness, and that oneness is pure, unadulterated, unconditional love, that which bestows in the objective as well as subjective realms of perception all law.
Okay, this is a larger system. This is a subsystem. Now, the subsystem is basically our universe and everything in it, and our Earth, the other planets, and everything in our universe. Okay, and it can only deal with matter, objective reality. Now, the larger has to encompass that, as well as everything else, like the mind, the conscious, the metaphysics, theology. All of those things are part of the larger reality, an important part. But we have to make this assumption and assume that there's a larger reality. And later we'll make the assumption that larger reality is consciousness. Some people say that, well, that's a pretty big assumption. But yeah, but it's not that leap, not that great a leap, that is. Okay? Because I'll show you later as we go along, it's not that stretch of imagination. Okay? All right. The point to make about this system and the subsystem is that you can never describe a larger system from information that's inside the subsystem. Okay, that should make sense to you. All right, when you're in a subsystem, or you just have the information that's a piece of the larger system that doesn't allow you, you don't have enough information to describe what's going on in the larger system, because you just don't have enough information. If you want to know something about the larger system, the only way to do that is to experience it. Okay, you can't do that from just staying inside the subsystem. You have to get out of that box. Okay, now there's just two assumptions, and models and theories always come with assumptions. Okay, and one of them is that consciousness exists, constitutes a larger reality. That's that leap we were talking about. All right, the second one is that the process of evolution exists and directs and encourages change to more profitable states of being. Talking about general concept of evolution, not just biological. Okay, technology evolves, businesses evolve, cultures evolve, all sorts of things evolve. But they exist, they change based upon more profitable states, depending on what's profitable. So there's a criteria for biological systems. That criteria is procreation, survival. For consciousness, it's entropy. For consciousness systems, it's a measure of disorder. Have high entropy, that means there's more disorder. Low disorder would be low entropy. The amount of energy that is available to do something, to do work, to cause some effect. So if you have low entropy, you have more order work. Okay. Let's take an example as a jug of water. Okay, you can do something with it. The molecules are all arranged in a very compact way. That's why it's liquid. You can pour it over a paddle wheel and make electricity. You can drop it on the floor and, break the bottle or break your toe. It has the ability to change things. But if you pour it out on the floor and come back in a month, there's not going to be any water there. The water has evaporated. Now that system has high entropy. It is dispersed all through the atmosphere. It can't do anything. It can't break your toe with a glass. You can't drink it. Can't boil it. You can't generate electricity with it. It doesn't have the capacity to do work because of all of the disorder that exists there. Okay, so pretty much in a nutshell, that's a definition of entropy. Now, a theory is only as valuable as if it hits 4 criteria. All theories have assumptions. You don't judge a theory based upon what you think of its assumptions. That's closed-minded. You judge a theory based on what it is able to do. It has to have the fewest false assumptions. Okay, if it needs a lot of assumptions to prop it up, then it's probably not true, fundamentally not true. Secondly, it has to drive all the old answers, but it has to drive new answers also. And lastly, those new answers have to show to be correct experimentally. If you have a theory or a model that does that, then the model and its assumptions model accurately a reality. So one cannot define the system in terms of the subsystem. To define the system, you have to be outside of the system. You can't define it from within. Okay? One must experience it. Okay, so with our universe being the subsystem, everything within our universe, Earth, all of our solar system, all of the other solar systems, everything that makes up our universe, okay, is now where this little red splash is. Okay, now of course, it's not by proper scale. if it were by proper scale, and this entire blue area were the greater system, then of course we couldn't even see the splash. It would be microscopic in comparison. All right, that's how minuscule our entire universe is in comparison to the larger reality. All right, microscopic. Okay, so proceeding from there. Consciousness is the system. Just to recap, consciousness is the system. Our universe, what we consider as being the normal, physical, objective matter reality. Our universe, our planets, all the solar systems together, that is the subsystem. Consciousness, which envelops all of the norm, the subsystem, as well as the paranormal subject reality, the non-physical mind and consciousness, is the supersystem, subjective reality. All right, just as a recap. So this is a physical reality model that explains the objective reality data. All right. Consciousness is best modeled as a digital information system. Everything you believe you know is and as reality is simply perception. Sensations created by biological stimuli, data, information, the matter which makes up our perceived reality can be manipulated by your mind because all is mind. Okay, I'll show you a clip that'll explain that a little bit better. Let me go ahead and play the clip.
So, what they taught us in school isn't really the way it is, and that our senses are playing tricks on us. You just gotta wonder, what is this reality that we find ourselves in? Quantum physics says it's all just waves of information. Do I believe that? I hope so. And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double-slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern! We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter, through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. But physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched. And it was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange, never-world of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing. But the great-great-granddaddy of wacky quantum weirdness is entanglement. If time reversal symmetry destroys the notion of time, then entanglement crushes our experience of space. Two objects, two electrons created together, are entangled. Send one to the other side of the universe. Now, do something to one, and the other responds instantly. Instantly. So, either information is traveling infinitely fast, or, in reality, they are still connected. They are entangled. And, since everything was entangled at the moment of the Big Bang, that means everything is still touching. Space is just the construct that gives the illusion that there are separate objects. Are we far enough down the rabbit hole yet? Welcome to Flatland, a world of only two dimensions. Only forwards and backwards, left and right. In this world, there is no up and no down.
I said to Ray, "Where's Dottie?" He said, "Well, she's out in line." I said,
Where's that from? What the bleep is that thing? Huh?
In this world, the two-dimensional beings that live here have no concept of three-dimensional objects. These two-dimensional flatlanders have no understanding of cubes, spheres, tetrahedrons, or yours truly. From their 2D perspective, my 3D finger looks something like this.
What the flutter is that?
Hello, little circle. Fear of the unknown. Or should I say, not yet known. It's a puzzle. If we see only what we know, how does anyone ever see anything new? The unknown. How do we ever get out of our box? Hello, little circle. Don't be afraid.
Who said that? Where are you?
This is always the tricky part to explain. I'm in another dimension, another space. I am above you.
Never use that word.
What word?
The A word.
Above?
It's forbidden.
Well, what do you think it means?
I don't know. And I don't want to know. You can be severely punished if you use that word. Are you a ghost?
I hope not. I just have a different perspective than you do. I can see things in a way you can't yet.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
Well, okay, you have a safe hidden in your pantry. And inside it, you have 12 coins, a will, and a passport.
How did you know that? What are you? Are you a god?
Well, no more than you. You see, since I am above you, in the third dimension, I can see inside things in your world.
Third dimension? You are a crazy ghost. There's only two. Look.
So, if I were to touch the inside of your stomach, how would I do that?
Well, you'd have to cut through my skin. Otherwise, it's impossible. Stop! Stop!
Ready for more?
More what?
Dimensions.
Oh.
Directions.
No. Yes, but there aren't any. More? What will happen to me? What will I become?
You'd have to become it to know.
Okay.
Excellent.